Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Well, today what we're going to be doing is putting that eBay 5.7 lowering kit on this 1991 OBS Chevrolet Silverado. So go ahead, follow along with me. We're going to do the rear first, do that C-notch flip kit. Then we're going to go ahead and get up the front, do the spindles and springs. Then we're going to throw these 20-inch, 10.5 in the rear, 9.5 in the front, US mags on here. So follow along, let's go ahead and get right in. You want to get this thing in the air and go ahead and pull all your wheels off. I have a 2-post lift, so it's going to be much easier for me to do this, but I know some of y'all use a jack and jack stand. It just might take you just a little bit longer to do the job. Right now is the best time when you get up in there. Go ahead and put some penetrating oil on all the studs and bolts and nuts that you're going to be using to take off. That way those can sit there and soak, and it'll be easier to take those off. One of the first things you want to take off after the wheels, being the front or the back, is go ahead and get these shocks out of the way. We're going to start with that, get in the front and the rear shocks, and go ahead and pull them out. Next, it's good to go ahead, loosen up those bolts that you put that silicone on, or the penetrating oil on the top and the bottom, but don't quite get ready to take those off. You want to make sure you have your rear end secure first, either on jack stands or transmission jack like I have it. Okay, now that we've got our rear end safely secured by our transmission jack, now I can go ahead, take these 4 bolts out on each side that's holding our rear end to our leaf springs, just as we did with our leafs and our hangers. And then I can simply just get this rear end and lower it down and then pull these leaves out of the way. Next thing I'm going to take loose is right here where this brake line from the rear end connects up here to the frame, because that right there is going to have to be moved for the C-notch. Now the C-notch will be going on right here where this bump stop is, so you need to take out the bolts up there, holding on your brake line and your wiring harness. As you can see, I've made these 2 marks on the frame. The first mark is the underside of the C-notch. Well, it's got to be cut a little larger than that in order to make up the thickness of the steel. So using this bottom hole, I line that bottom hole up with the hole in the frame. And once I've done that, you see that first mark. Well, the second mark is going to be my cut mark. So then this right here should slide right into place. This C-notch will slide right into place. And that lower hole that was used for the brace will still be utilized to bolt back up to secure that brace. Then we'll start with getting our pilot bit and drilling our holes. Now, put your bolt, your washer on your back side, your nut. Now on your leaves, this center bolt, this is your lineup dowel. You want to make sure you take this bolt out of one side and insert it in the other. That's what you're going to now use to line up your rear end, since your rear end is going from the bottom to the top. My original hanger, you want to make sure the flat part is towards the back of the truck. I'm going to slide that into place and screw it onto the end. Next, take your leaf and lift it into position, and then again with your bolt and slide it through the top. The top is going to be an 8-inch drop. The second one, the one closest to your bottom bolt, is going to be your 5.7 drop. Okay, so I'm going to lift my leaf right up into position. And there it is. Now with the U-bolt sitting down, use this bracket here and your line-up holes and just simply place it up there. And your offset hole, not your center, but your offset is what will line this up. So using your original nut and washer, torque these back down, and then you'll be finished with the rear other than your shock mounts. Alright, now when you take your wheels off, this right here would be the best time to go ahead and check to see if you need any new bearings, rotors, or possibly even new brakes and calipers. Okay, now using our Allen wrench, we're going to put it on our caliper and then go ahead and loosen that up. And then once those Allen screws are loosened all the way out, you'll be able to take off your caliper to release those brakes off that rotor. And then you should be able to grab it, pull it right loose, just like that. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and start with is taking this cap off. I'm just going to run all the way around it. Just tap on the side just to loosen it up a little. And then get in behind that lip and pull that off. Now on this, just simply bend that cotter pin back to straight position. And there it is. Now you're going to reuse this nut on your new spindle. So when taking that nut off, make sure you don't get it in any dirt. Another thing you're going to want to do is take this sway bar link off. It's usually a 13mm top and bottom. Now that the sway bar is loose, I'm going to go ahead, take that nut loose. Now that we have the sway bar loose, I'm going to take the tie rod end loose from the spindle. That's 18mm as well. Now all you need to do to take this right here loose is just take a hammer and hit the side of your spindle, and this should fall right out. And there it is. Next thing what I'll be doing, I'm going to be lowering the truck down and taking this nut loose from the top right here. This is for the shock. So there's a shock right here and it's got one bolt. Take that out from the top. Now your top bolt to your shock is located right on above your control arm, beside your engine and your steering linkage. It's going to be a 15mm. Now that the top bolts are loose, the single one on the top of the shock, I can take these lower two loose, which is also 13mm. Now, on your spindle, you want to get your carter key out of the lower nut ball joint and the top nut ball joint. Take those nuts loose, but do not remove them. If that spring right there was to come out from it being under pressure, it could cause serious injury or harm to you or anybody standing around. Now that both my carter keys are out, I can loosen up these nuts, but not pull them all the way out, because I want to make sure that this right here is going to be safely compressed before removing that. Okay, I've loosened up this nut. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the side of the spindle to allow this right here to break loose. And there it is. Now, just like the bottom, I'm going to hit the top, break it loose. And there that is. So now this is under a lot of pressure, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to lower this down and put it against the control arm on the floor, and then I'll loosen those nuts up, raise it up, and then the spring should fall out. Pull my spindle off, then push down on my control arm and pull my spring out. Okay, now that everything's off, this would be a good time to check your upper and lower ball joints. The ones on this truck are in great shape, so I'm not going to have to replace those, but this is the best time to go ahead, get you a wire brush, and start cleaning that front frame section up. Okay, now on the front, I used my original rubber boot at the top. Simply put some tape around the top of the spring to hold that into place, and then your lower section here on your spring will have to line up into the lower section here on your control arm. So, install your spring. Okay, now what you're seeing me doing, I'm just lifting it up and putting something up under the control arm, and then once I lower down my lift, it'll put tension on that spring there, and it'll allow me to put that spindle in place and then put the nuts in place, and then I can release that pressure so that it can be safely removed. I want to take my spindle and I'm going to sit it right there in the upper one, put it in place, and slide it down over the lower one. just like that. Now you put your nut back in. Okay, once you've got your carter keys tightened up, your bolts tightened up, the carter keys in, you can put in your new shock. So you put your metal washer on, your rubber washer, slide up to the bottom. Now I'm just going to put me a little line of grease all the way down my spindle here. Now this is the perfect time to go ahead and set your dust cover back on. Now I'm going to take all this stuff back apart and clean it once I disassemble the truck. But right here, this spindle you can see, you can utilize all your bolts. We're on the Beltec spindle kit that I showed you in my previous video. That was not able to be done. I had to actually cut this for it to work. Now I can take this tie rod in, slide it right back into position, and put my nut back on and torque that down. Okay, I put my rotor back on, my bearing, my washer here, and then my nut, and I checked it, make sure it wasn't too tight. Now I just need to put my carter pin right there. Okay, once I've got my carter pin back in, I can tap my dust cover all the way around it and then check it. And now it's time to put the rotor brake pads back on and the caliper. Okay, now I can take my caliper loose from my pieces that I had here to hold it up. Slide it right into place. My pads are already in the caliper, so I can slide it right into place. And you can see it fits just like stock, which is what I like about this versus the Beltec. Okay, well now this is complete. All I have left to do is put that sway bar link bushing in with the bolt as well, and then this side's finished. So I'm going to go ahead, get the other side done. That way I can get those sway bar link bushings in, and they'll both be on both sides, and I'll be able to easily put them in. And then we'll go ahead and sit it on the ground and see how this thing looks. Alright guys, well that's it. The kit's on the truck. I think that it looks amazing. Keep following along, hit that notification bell, subscribe, like, and comment if you have any questions on what you've seen in the video. But until next time guys, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing.